Hello, good afternoon. My name is Sofía de la Garza. What? Sorry. I am one of the advisors here at the Education USA Mexico City Center. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you what is Education USA. And this is also for our friends in Facebook that we have Facebook Live going on right now. So if you want to share it, this event is being broadcast by the Education USA Mexico City Facebook page. And well, Education USA is a network of advising centers. We belong to the Department of State, so we are the official source of information about higher education. We have 450 centers in 180 countries. And in Mexico, we have 26 centers, and we all provide accurate, free, comprehensive information about education in the U.S. Thank you for being here. So I'm just going to leave you now with Angela McCracken, who is going to speak a little bit more about USC and this presentation.
Thank you very much, Sofia, and Education USA for receiving the University of Southern California today. My name is Angela McCracken. I'm the director of USC's office in Mexico City. And what we do is reach out to talented Mexicans to recruit them for our graduate programs, our undergraduate programs. Okay, thanks. We facilitate research collaborations with universities and research centers all over Latin America. And we also work with governments and foundations to establish scholarship agreements. So we'll talk to you a little bit about that later. Today I have the pleasure of introducing my colleagues from the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, Rei Fujioka, my colleague Marisol Rios from the USC Price School of Public Policy, and Julia Martinez from the USC Gould School of Law. And together they have over 50 years of experience in admissions. So we're going to give perspective from the admissions officials about what makes a good application. We're going to focus on some really important parts of the application that you can work on today. And this is a great opportunity to ask them questions. If you have been working on your applications, it's an opportunity to ask them really hard questions. So we'll stop at the end of each section and ask you to join with questions. And USC, for those who are not familiar with it, is the University of Southern California. Many people know USC because of the Trojan football team, the Trojan sports teams, but it's also one of the strongest academic and research centers in the United States. It's the largest private research university in California, located in Los Angeles, and we have 21 schools. Today we just have 3 schools represented, but we have a College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, 21 professional schools. Together we have over 150 bachelor's degrees or licenciaturas and over 450 graduate programs. So without further ado, we'll start with statement of purpose.
Hello everyone, my name's Marisol Rios. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the Price School of Public Policy. I've been with USC for almost 20 years. I've been doing graduate recruitment and admissions for that many years. I've been with the Price School of Public Policy for 17, and my other 3 years I was with the School of Social Work. And again, it's been all graduate admissions that I've been doing this. And like Angela said, we're here to give you tips in the application process. It's very important for you to know what the components are of applying to a graduate program. Graduate programs in different disciplines and also PhD programs. So, hope you find this information helpful. And before I do get started, The Price School of Public Policy offers master's programs and PhD programs in the areas of public policy, urban planning, health administration, public administration. We do have a new master's program in public policy and data science, and we do offer executive programs, and then we offer 2 PhD programs in public policy and management, and also a PhD in urban planning and development. So, one of the important components of the graduate application is a statement of purpose. So every part of the application, you do want to make sure that you do put emphasis and don't take the certain parts of the application lightly, because at the graduate level, PhD level, the entire application is looked at. For the personal statement, if you're writing a statement for a PhD program or a master's program, most of the statements, there are 2 types of personal statements that you're going to see. You're going to see a general comprehensive personal statement, and you're also going to see a response to a very specific prompt. Most of the programs that you would probably be applying to, master's or PhD programs, most of the times the programs have a specific questions that they want you to answer. So it's really rare that you'll find a program that doesn't have general specific questions. So it makes it a little bit harder for the applicant when it's more general, because you really don't have any guidance. And it makes it easier when there is a specific prompt response that you need to answer to. So those are the 2 different types of personal statements that you will see, but you'll see more of the specific prompt response that you would need to address. So before drafting your personal statement, you want to make sure you remember who your audience is. So you want to know who's going to be reading your statement of purpose. Usually at the graduate level, you will have committees in both PhD and master's programs. At the master's level, you might have staff, admissions counselors that are reviewing your statement of purpose. At the PhD level, you're going to have faculty. So you want to make sure who your audience is. Try to find out, and most of the time, if you do contact the institution or the program that you're applying to, you can ask, who's going to read my application? Is it going to be a committee? Is it going to be a faculty committee? Is it going to be staff administration that's going to be reading my application? So know who's going to be reading your statement of purpose. Research the school and the program to which you're applying to. So that's very important, because you need to know the program that you're applying in order for you to write the statement. You need to know about the program that you're applying to, because that's going to, you're going to let the committee know, whoever's reading your application, that you really have a true interest in the program that you're applying to. So there are many ways that you can research the programs: by visiting the website, talking, if you have access to talking to alumni, if you know alumni from the program, reaching out to faculty, current students that are in the program. If you have the opportunity to visit the institution or the program that you're applying to, that's another way for you to learn about the program and the university that you're attending. Turning weaknesses into strengths, and one of the examples that I like to give, sometimes students at the undergraduate level, they might have not had or had a really strong academic performance, and maybe they changed majors, and maybe the major that they started off with, it wasn't the right fit for them, so their academics suffered, and you might have not performed well, but maybe you changed majors and then you performed and you got better grades. So you want to address that in your statement of purpose. You don't want to leave the committee to draw their own conclusions of why maybe you didn't perform well the first year in undergrad, or you want to make sure that they know what happened. If there was health, family issues that caused your performance in your undergraduate academic record to drop. So you want to make sure that you address those in your statement of purpose. You can do it as part of your statement of purpose, or you can also add an addendum as part of your statement of purpose. And creating an outline of what you want to talk about in your statement of purpose. Statement topics, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the programs that you might be applying to will give you specific prompts, questions that they want you to answer. If you come across a program that you're applying to that doesn't give you any prompt or specific questions. These are the more common questions that you'll answer when you're writing your statement of purpose is, how did you become interested in in the field? This might be something that, through work, through maybe faculty that you talk to, maybe family, friends, alumni, how did you become interested in the field? So you want to talk about that. What kind of activities or experiences have you had that have contributed towards the preparation in the field? So you want to that's another topic that you can talk about in your statement of purpose. Your research interest. That's definitely an area, especially if you're applying to a PhD program. Your research interest is going to be very important. So that's definitely, you want to talk about that in your statement of purpose if you're applying to a PhD program, because research interest is very important. The committee who's going to be reviewing your statement of purpose is going to want to see that you are the right fit to the program, that there is a faculty member that's doing research in the area that you're interested in. So research is very important as part of the master's, part of the PhD application statement. And then what attracts you most about the institution, and why is the program a good match? So that's very important. We want to, as a person who's read a lot of applications, I want to know why the student is applying to my school, my institution, my program, and that specific program. So it's important for us to see that there is a fit with your interests, research interests, your career interests, to those areas that we have within our program. So that's very important for us to know. And then finally, the beginning and the end to a statement, the outline. So you want to have you want to have the outline and then your opening paragraph. Again, this is an opportunity for you to talk about, yourself. If there was, something that, maybe as in your childhood that kind of introduced you to the field, that, attracted you to the field, specific field, as a child, if you were, interested in engineering, that's something that you can talk about and kind of start in that way, and it kind of introduces you to the field or why you're interested and why you became interested. So, you can talk a little bit about your background in the opening paragraph. Academic accomplishments, your academic experience as an undergrad student, if you received, some type of awards, that's something that you can talk about as well as part of your statement. Your research experience, if you do have research experience, you definitely want to make sure that you do talk about your research experience. And at the PhD level, again, this is going to be very important as part of the application for the PhD program. Employment and volunteer experience. Some master's programs will require work experience and some don't. So you want to pay attention to that, because if they do require work experience, you definitely want to make sure that you do mention how the work that you're doing applies to the program that you're applying to. If you've done volunteer experience, so you want to address that. And again, master's programs, it really depends. Some of them do require the work experience and some of them don't. And then at the end, your future plans and why is the program a good fit to you? So again, this is part of you knowing what the school's about. So you want to make sure, again, that you know the school that you're applying to, the program, and why is it a good fit. So that's going to be very important at the end. And an advice that I always give students, I've seen so many students write statement of purpose because they're applying to so many programs. They forget to proofread the statement or forget to have somebody proofread the statement, so they might address the statement to the wrong institution. So don't make the mistake of applying to an institution and it really has the name of another school, a competitor. So you definitely don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that the statement that you're writing is for that program that you're writing. And we know because students are applying to multiple programs, they're writing statement of purposes for different schools, and sometimes they forget to change the name of the institution. So you want to make sure that your statement is proofread and that you have the correct program or institution that you're applying to. So I think that's my last slide, right? Is there any questions about the statement of purpose that you have that I can answer? When we don't, when there's, when a student, with the research, so if a student hasn't done the research of the program that they're applying to, the student might be talking about a certain area of specialization that we might not even offer. So again, that's doing your research and finding out if we are the right fit, but whatever school you're applying to, that there is that right fit, because we often see students who they're applying to multiple programs, but we might not be the right fit for everyone, because the student might be looking for a certain specialization, a certain coursework that we might not even offer, and the student talks about it. So it's not that it's bad, but then we see that the student didn't do the research and didn't look into the type of specializations that we offer. Give an example. We offer a Master's of Urban Planning. We don't focus on rural planning. We focus on urban planning. So someone who's interested in rural planning, we're not the right fit. And if they're talking in their statement about rural planning, we're not the right fit for them. So we can see that in the statement. So that's just an example. The PhD, that's where fit is very important, and you definitely want to do, and if you're applying to a PhD program, do your research on the faculty and their areas of interest, because if there's no match and you have certain interest and there's no faculty at the school that you're applying that's doing the same research that you're interested, then it's not the right fit. So those are some of the more common errors that we see. And misspellings, grammar, always have somebody proofread your statement. That's very important.
Should we mention specific faculty members that we're interested, or just like a vague idea of what we want?
Good question.
Can you repeat the question so people, if they don't hear it?
Okay. She's asking if you should mention specific faculty in your statement of purpose, and the answer is yes. You should, especially if you're applying to a PhD program. You do want to mention the faculty member in the statement of purpose. So even if you've had interactions, if you've had contact with the faculty, because sometimes the faculty that you've contacted or have been talking to might not be part of the committee. So if the committee sees that you've reached out and you've connected with that faculty member, then they'll refer to the faculty member and say, oh, we have an applicant in the pool who's connected with you. They're interested in your research. So yes, so mention the faculty, and even at the master's level, it does help if you visited the school and connected with faculty, or you've connected with alumni or students in the program, mention that. Again, it connects, there's the fit. We're looking for the fit.
If my employment experience is different from the field of study I'm pursuing in my master's degree, should I mention it or should I just cross it out?
You can mention it and maybe tie it to, maybe if there was something that you did in your current or your work that maybe might have guided you to that field. Or if it's completely not related, there's no need. Again, if the program requires work experience or not. Yeah.
Maybe I should address this to Raymond, because I see he's wearing the Viterbi shirt. Do you think that a statement of purpose should include specific technical details, or should it not?
Are you applying to a master's program or a PhD? PhD.
Repeat the question.
So the question was, at least with the Viterbi School, should you talk about specific experience or research that you've done?
And getting very technical.
Right, and getting very technical. So it does depend. If the research that you're doing is directly related to the research that you want to do at USC, and there are specific professors that you've found, or labs that are doing the sort of research that you want to do, then you can certainly get relatively technical, but do keep in mind that the committee is not necessarily going to include your particular professor. So you don't want to expound too much on that, because they're going to say, yeah, whatever. But mentioning a certain level of technical expertise, just showing that this is really what I want to do, this is what I'm passionate about, can definitely be beneficial.
It depends. Usually for question, if there's a limit in the number of words for the statement of purpose. I think it really depends on the program that you're applying to. Some programs have very strict guidelines in the number of words. So do the research and find out by program. So typically it's usually 2 or 3 pages, but it really depends on the type of program that you're applying to.
Is volunteering really important over employment, or you consider it like it's in a holistic way?
Programs might look at it. At the Price School, we take the holistic approach when we're looking at the application. So if your volunteer work was related to any of the programs that you're applying to, it will be important. So if you have some volunteer, our programs don't require work experience, so we take volunteer experience into account. So it really depends on the program that you're applying to. Any other questions? Nope. What question? Nope. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Ray, who's going to be talking about standardized test scores.
Hi, my name is Ray Fujioka. I'm with the Viterbi School of Engineering. I've actually been with the graduate program in engineering. This is actually my 36th year with the program, so I know a little bit about it. The Viterbi School basically is a large school of engineering. We've got over 5,000 students in the graduate program, spread over 8 departments, and we have over 60 master's programs, 13 PhD programs. We do have a CONACYT agreement for master's programs, and we do fully fund all of our PhD programs. So I'm here to talk about the graduate record exam, more commonly referred to as the GRE. It is administered by a group called ETS. You may be familiar with them because it's the same group that also administers the TOEFL test. So the best place to get all the details on registering for it and things like that are actually at ets.com, their website. So most schools do require the general GRE, and basically there are also subject tests like mathematics, and it's really best to check with the schools to which you're applying before you take the subject tests. Most schools don't require them. Our personal recommendation at USC Viterbi is if it's not required, don't take it because it doesn't tend to carry all that much weight, so you might as well spend your time studying for the general GRE and not spend the additional money on something that's not going to affect your application that much. So basically, the quant and verbal scores range from 130 to 170 per section, and the scores are going to vary a lot depending on the school that you apply to and the programs that you apply to, because different programs require different strengths. So in engineering, we really focus on the quantitative. Other programs, for instance, if you were going to do a communications course, they're probably going to be have less impact for the quantitative score, but they're going to really be looking at the verbal scores. So, that's something to consider. Don't just assume that the quant scores and the verbal scores are going to be the same no matter what program you're applying to. There's also an analytical writing score that ranges from 0 to 6. Again, the importance of that score depends on the program. So, it's worthwhile actually even contacting the school and the specific departments, asking, how important is this score to my application? Because even if it's not written on the website, the people that you email will definitely know and are usually more than happy to provide you at least with average scores for the GRE. And also, so you want to take these on all of your standardized tests, whether it's the GRE, the TOEFL, the IELTS, at least 1 month and possibly 2 months before your earliest application deadline. That's because ETS takes a certain amount of time to process the scores, but you also want some additional time just in case something happens. I've run across several cases where the people at ETS have lost scores or something happens, and basically, no matter whose fault it is, it basically impacts the students. So it really makes sense to take it a little bit earlier, so if there is a problem, you can correct it and still meet your deadlines. So with the exceptions of law, medicine, and business, and they have their own tests, basically the LSAT, the MCAT, and the GMAT. Most of the other graduate programs require GRE scores. And even a lot of the others, medicine, I think, still pretty much requires the MCAT for all of their applicants. But for law and business, very often they will accept either their specific test or the GRE. So especially if you're applying to different sorts of departments, it's worthwhile checking with like a school of business to see whether they'll accept the GRE so that you don't have to take 2 exams if you don't need to. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of international students think that the GRE score is something that's required only of them. Most of the schools require GRE scores from everyone. And I've even had cases where I've had students that have already earned a PhD program, and I've had to tell them, no, you have to submit GRE scores. So it's something that's kind of a universal for those schools that require the GRE. As I mentioned, the competitive scores do vary greatly from school to school and even from program to program within the same school. In fact, on an upcoming slide, you're going to see some average scores. So basically, just for examples, our Viterbi School of Engineering, our average quantitative is a 165, the average verbal is a 152. We actually don't consider the analytical writing score important. When we give out averages to potential students, we give average quant, average verbal. We don't actually have an average analytical writing score that we publish. One thing to look at least in the School of Engineering, is that there's really not that much difference between our master's and our PhD. And the quant is the same. There's only a 1-point difference in the verbal score. And then if you look at the Price School, the scores are very much different. And one thing to look at, for instance, is the average verbal score between the Viterbi School of Engineering PhD and the Price School PhD. And there's a 10-point difference between those scores. And that really gives you a feel for how much of a difference the emphasis from program to program makes. So does anyone have any questions about the GRE? Right. So basically, the question was, how do you prepare, or what should I do to prepare for the GRE or any of the other tests? And the simple answer is practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to do on the test. But also, there are a lot of tools out there. Certainly there are GRE test prep books, which can be very useful and are relatively inexpensive. But in addition to that, a lot of companies do GRE test prep courses. I don't honestly recommend any of those. I don't think they're really necessary. But as part of that, they often offer an online GRE practice test. And that can be really useful because it gives you a feel for what it's actually like to take the test. And a lot of it with the GRE isn't just knowing the information that you need, but it's understanding how they ask the question and what sort of response they're looking for. So it's a little bit different. The one other thing to keep in mind, and this isn't true of all schools, but it definitely is true at USC, is that some schools do what they call super scoring, meaning that for the GRE, if you take multiple exams, and that can actually be useful because once you've taken the exam, chances are you'll do significantly better if you take it a second time. But by super scoring, we mean that, for instance, if you took the exam, say 3 times, and then your analytical writing score was best on one test, the verbal on another, and the quantitative on another, USC will actually take the best scores from all 3 exams. So there's really no downside to actually taking and submitting multiple scores. Any other questions? Thank you.
My name is Julia Martinez, and I'm a Student Services Advisor at the USC Gould School of Law. I work in the Graduate and International Programs Office. So we are a one-stop shop for all of the students who are in the Master of Laws programs and alternative degree programs. So today I'm going to be focusing specifically on our Master of Laws program, which is a 1-year, also known as the LLM program. It's a 1-year program, full-time, for foreign educated attorneys. So in the United States, all of the top law schools require students to apply through what's called the Law School Admissions Council. We call it LSAC for short. And the way it works, first of all, it's a nonprofit organization for promoting equity in education and specifically law education. It also makes the process of applying to law schools a lot easier for students in that it streamlines the process. So one of the ways in which it does that is through this LLM credential assembly service, which basically means that for any students who are eligible to apply to earn an LLM degree, so there are a lot of US law schools who are participating. As I mentioned, the top law schools are members, and USC is definitely one of the top law schools, so we are a member. And you just create an account, so a username, password, and then you upload what you would need for your application. So for example, letters of recommendation, test scores like the TOEFL or IELTS scores, so different things like that. Basically all of your academic credentials and anything else you're going to need for your application. You will need to pay a one-time fee. That's part of the LSAC service. And different schools may require different application fees. We'll share information a little bit later about USC Gould specifically and a way to get that fee waived if you apply. But once you do that, LSAC, this service that is provided, they'll send your application to the universities, to the institutions that you select on your behalf. So basically, you send your information to LSAC as a central source, select the places you want to apply to, and LSAC will send your application for you. So hopefully that makes the process of applying to law school a little bit easier and a little bit less stressful. Great. Does anyone have any questions about LSAC? Yes. Great question. So the question was, do you need to create a single account, or do you need to create an account every time you apply to the program? So you only need to create one account through LSAC, and then you indicate which programs you want to apply for, and LSAC will send your credentials and your application information to those programs on your behalf. Any other questions? Yes. That's a great question. I believe it's one statement of purpose that you would tailor to each program. So you would probably have a version for each university because, as my colleague mentioned earlier, you want it tailored, to explain why that institution, why that program, what your intentions are. So it would need to be tailored, but you can use the same general type and then just alter it for each program that you apply for. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, but we will, when we finish this general presentation, break into groups. So those with questions about the curriculum and the courses available in the Master of Laws will go with Julia. We'll break into public policy, public administration, and engineering groups, and those who are interested in applying to PhD programs and want additional information can work with me. And I'm available throughout the year by telephone and email. I prefer telephone or WhatsApp to work on questions about PhD applications, since it's a bit more complex than the master's. So I'm going to share on letters of recommendation for a master's and PhD program, because somebody shared this with me and it was tremendously helpful to plan and advance for letters of recommendation as much as possible, which means a good letter of a recommendation comes from somebody who knows you academically, maybe professionally, but for a year or more, and they really know your work. It's not necessarily the director of your school or the director of your university, somebody with a high title, but it's a professor that you took 2 or more classes with, or if you don't have the chance to take 2 classes with the same professor, maybe because you just can't do it logistically or you've already graduated, a professor that you can work with outside of class, do some volunteering in their lab or in their the writing projects, at least visit them in their office outside of class so that they get to know you and your interests, and you can plant a seed that you're looking at doing graduate programs, and you might be asking them for a letter of recommendation letter so that they can pay attention as well to your development. So you want them to be very familiar with your work. For a master's level, they can be an academic and a professional recommendation, usually 1 and 1, or they might require 3 recommendation letters, so it could be 2 and 1 professional, or 1 academic and 2 professional. And they should be familiar with your statement of purpose. So now that you're exploring this, I recommend, if you haven't already, start reaching out to people, mentors, faculty, or professional that you might want to ask for a letter of recommendation and let them know what you're thinking and what you're planning. They can give you really important feedback on what your proposal or your statement of purpose is saying. This is especially important for PhD level. They can give you feedback on the technical details that you're including. They can give you feedback on how innovative it is, or whether you need to do some more reading and more literature review before you make that proposal. So at the PhD level, I recommend only academic, usually 3 academic recommendation letters. I recommend that they be familiar with PhD training. So it's desirable that they've also done a PhD. The goal of a PhD is to make an original contribution to knowledge. So somebody who's done that can comment on your ability to make an original contribution to knowledge, which requires a deep and broad level of scientific curiosity and creativity. So somebody who's been in that position and gone through that process, they can give you a lot of good feedback and they can make a good recommendation. Because the panel reading your your application will include other PhD faculty. So they have sort of a language among themselves. And they should also be familiar with your statement of purpose. It's even more important when you ask for a letter of recommendation for a PhD that you share the statement of purpose so that they know what they're talking about when they talk about you and your application. And so these are my recommendations as you prepare. As you approach someone, hopefully you've been working with them for a while and then you've let them know your plans. Start by asking if they have any requirements or preferences for letter writing, for recommendation letter writing. One of my professors gave me a printout and said, this is what you need to do to ask me for a letter of recommendation. And it had dates and what she wanted to know. She wanted a copy of my CV and a copy of my statement of purpose. She wanted at least a month in advance, and I don't remember the other details. So by giving her that opportunity, I was able to fulfill my obligation better and also be less nervous. If you're nervous about asking for recommendation letters, I want you to know that it's really an honor when a professor is asked to write a recommendation letter. So don't be nervous, but just be prepared. So yeah, if they don't have guidelines, be prepared to share your statement of purpose so that they understand what you're applying to. Summarize for them how they know you and what you'd like them to highlight. So this is an opportunity, especially for professors or employers who have hundreds and hundreds of students over their lifetime. If they can have a simple reminder that says, I took Econ 101 and public policy with you, and I got a 10 in both, and I did that extra project for extra credit, or I did a thesis, or I helped your other student with their thesis, and we had this conversation, we talked about anything that you would like them to highlight. That helps them recall the great relationship that you've been building with them and know what would be valuable to you and your application for them to comment on. Since you will be knee-deep in your application and what you want it to look like, the more information you share, the more helpful it is for the recommender. And then give them enough time. I recommend a month, but also a reminder or two. I like a reminder a few days before and the day of. Usually, your university will say, we're still waiting for a recommendation letter. So you'll know if they haven't sent it in. And so you can say, give a gentle reminder. And I don't think it's rude. I think even though I like a month in advance to plan, I'm very likely to do it at the last minute. So a little reminder is helpful to me. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So that's the end of our general presentation. Oh, nope, sorry. What? Yeah, I forgot the most important part. So in Mexico, we have collaboration agreements with CONACYT, FUNED, and FIDER. If you're not familiar with these organizations, you need to get familiar with them very soon because they help with scholarship and low-interest loans. These schools at USC have collaboration agreements with these three institutions, which means that we have a scholarship amount that we give in collaboration with a scholarship or a low-interest loan from these institutions. So it gives you the advantage of putting together funds from both institutions, and it gives us the opportunity to offer scholarship funds, especially to recruit Mexican students. All the PhDs at USC are fully funded, which means you have full tuition and living stipend of $30,000 a year minimum, which is enough to live comfortably on in Los Angeles. So the collaboration that we have with CONACYT is not necessary, but it's an opportunity to bring in what's called outside funding, which is a big part of doing PhD studies, is learning how to bring in outside funding. It goes on your curriculum. It looks very prestigious that your government supported your PhD education. So it's really a tremendous opportunity as well. We also have the master's agreement in engineering with CONACYT, which we have several students currently with different levels of support from CONACYT in our engineering program and master's, and it's also tremendously generous. And then FUNED and FIDER provide low interest loan and also really great network of recipients, all studying masters in abroad outside of Mexico. So I think that's it. We would be really happy if you would consider USC. This is our new building in the University Village. And I'm going to give you, especially for those of you online, the contact of our 3 representatives today so that you can follow up. And then those of us here in the room will break out into smaller groups. So those of you interested in the public policy areas, these areas, you can visit the website up above or contact Marisol at this email address. Oops. Oh, I wrote let me see. Look at this. Oh, no, it's not going to let me. Okay. Sorry, I wrote her email address wrong. It's marisolr@priceschool.usc.edu. Sorry. Marisol R. Okay. Those interested in the engineering, any of these 8 engineering areas, please visit this website. Another good reason to visit the website is we have a preview day, November 2nd and November 30th, and they have travel grants available to partially cover your travel to Los Angeles to attend the preview day. This is the first year they've offered it for Mexico. So they really want to receive more students from Mexico. If you go to the website, you can find the preview day and apply for travel grant to go to LA one of those days and have a day full of activities on campus and learn more about their programs. And if you're interested in the Master of Law for international lawyers, please visit the USC Gould website. And also, if you're going to apply, take this QR code. It will give you a fee waiver code for the LLM. Okay. My email address, I neglected to include that, is angela@usc.edu. And please feel free to contact me. Okay? Especially if you're interested in other areas that haven't been represented today, I can also put you in touch with those people. Okay, thank you very much.